So I study the impact of the unstable schedules in the retail industry on productivity and profitability. We know that retail and food and beverage industries are the largest employers in the US. Together, they account for more than 16 million people. The median hourly wage in these industries are pretty low, but that's not the only problem that these employees face. Another significant issue that they have been facing is that one, many of them are part-time, more than 40%, which means that they have to have more than 2, sometimes 3 jobs. Their schedules are nothing similar to 9 to 5. Their hours change from day to day, from week to week. They get their schedules very late. And even when they get their schedules during the week, their schedules change. They are, in many cases, they are on call, they have to come, or the manager sends them home. So they have really challenging schedules. So the reason we have these common scheduling practices is that firms believe that this helps them have high customer service and at the same time low labor cost, because they believe they can make sure they have just right amount of right number of employees at the store, not more than necessary, not less than necessary. But we know that these will create unstable schedules, and there's a huge literature on how these impact employees' quality of life. What we don't know is that is the productivity effect of these schedules, and ultimately we don't know how these schedules and scheduling practices affect profitability. And it's crucial to know that, especially during this time and in the aftermath of COVID-19, because both the businesses are under a lot of pressure, and the employees are under the pressure. So understanding how these might align or might not align can be very helpful. The reason that they offer these unstable schedule is that customer traffic and the workload that the stores face vary a lot from hour to hour and from day to day, and they cannot really, with a lot of detail, estimate and forecast these. So what they do is try to match the hours to traffic in short increments. And to do that, they first hire a lot of employees to give them flexibility to have on-call, ask them to come whenever they want, and also to make sure that their constraints don't affect the store. They reduce the length of shifts to make sure that there are no unnecessary overlaps between employee hours, and they update schedules during the week to resolve the mismatches, which on the employee side mean inadequate hours, inconsistent hours, and unpredictable hours. And that's what I'm, in this work, that's what I'm looking at, how these dimensions of schedule stability affect productivity and profitability. Based on my interviews, I see that the employees are really unhappy about these situations, and they lack enough motivation. For example, one says, my life is always in turmoil every day because you can't sleep and you need sleep. You need a set schedule to be able to sleep. Or another one says they have tons of us in a single store. They hire a lot of people, but they don't have enough hours to give. So I argue that because of the income inadequacy and uncertainty, and because of the work-life conflict, these employees have low motivation and commitment. Because many of them work 2-3 part-time jobs, or they don't spend enough time in each job. They don't develop high level of task expertise, and so their productivity is expected to be low. And as a result of these individual level effects, we expect to see a lot of turnover, a lot of call-outs, and for those who are consistently there, burnout, and also taking shortcuts and loss of accumulated experience. But more importantly, when the store has a lot of turnout and burnout and call-out, managers really have a tough time leading the store and focusing on improving the store, because they have to deal with the repercussions of these instability in the store. And many cases, if they have to actually do the cover for their employees themselves, because it's really unstable. So based on that, my hypothesis is that these schedules will negatively affect productivity and profitability. To test that, I have 52 weeks of data at the individual and store level in 2015 of a national retail chain that has 1,600 stores across the country, and over the course of the year, 77,000 employees. The data includes a lot of detailed variables that address many confounding factors. For example, I have customer traffic or demands that can affect both schedules and productivity and profitability. I have sales plan, I have manager experience, I have proxies for store complexity, and so on. So the way I look at productivity in the individual level, it's calculated as associate sales divided by the hours they worked. On the store level, the productivity is the total store sales in that week divided by total store hours. And for profits, I calculate that based on the expected formula of store sales times gross margin minus labor cost. My independent variables are adequacy, which is the number of hours each employee worked, consistency, which is the difference between hours worked and the average of hours over the course of past month, and predictability is the difference between the hours that is scheduled for a week and hours that they actually work. I use a weighted average for the store level. The main challenge to identify this relationship is the reverse causality that exists, meaning that if an employee performs really well in a given week, the manager might give them more hours or better hours. Or overall, if an employee performs well in a couple of weeks, they might get better schedules. In the store level, the stores that have higher profits might have more leeway to offer better schedules, or might take advantage of better schedules more easily. To address that, I have multiple strategies. The first is that I use random exogenous shocks to scheduling as an IV. I identify these shocks through newspaper articles. I'll explain that in a moment. Beyond that, I have a natural experiment based on labor law changes in San Francisco. And finally, as a robustness check, I also use the lag independent variables as IVs. So the way the scheduling works is that the store managers get some algorithmic suggestion from corporate office, and they face a lot of pressure from corporate office to meet labor budget, sales plan, logistic plan, and these will affect the career prospects of that store manager. But at the same time, the store manager faces some pressure from the employee side because they interact on a daily basis with employees. They themselves have experience as a part-time or hourly employee, and also they see the amount of chaos that's resulting from this instability. So they do want to offer better schedules when they can. So these exogenous events that I'm talking about, what they do is that they increase the awareness in store managers about the negative impact of unstable schedules, which I argue will marginally improve the stability for a short time, and as a result, temporarily improves the store's productivity and profitability. Okay, so I identify these exogenous events using data sources in national and local newspaper and TV over the course of 2015. Events are, an example of events are, for example, when in a state there is a rally that specifically targets unstable schedules, or when there are legal actions around unstable schedules. For example, New York Attorney General had a letter in 2015 to a couple of retailers talking about that. What I see is that as a result of that, schedules get better and the performance will get better, and I'll show the results in a second. I also have the natural experiment, which looks at the large changes in July 2015 in 23 stores in San Francisco. I see the changes. I see that the consistency of schedules interestingly go down, and the consequence is that the average productivity in San Francisco stores go down after that law. The summary of the results is that if we increase all dimensions of stability by 1 standard deviation, we see a 3% increase in profitability in stores and 7% increase in productivity. And in the individual level, the biggest factor is adequacy of hours. If we increase that by 1 standard deviation, meaning if the median employee, which have the hours of works for 13 hours, now work for 24 hours per week, then their productivity increases by 29%. And overall, if we increase the stability in all dimensions, we see 32% increase in productivity at the individual level. The most important takeaway of this research as a result of the result you saw, is that the utility of the employees and that of the employers might be more aligned than we usually assume, because ordinarily the business assumes that, okay, these have better schedule, have labor cost effects, and they are not desirable for that. But we see that the productivity effects might be more significant than the labor cost effect, and so their utility might be more aligned, which is again very important for the time we live in. Beside that, most brick and mortar retailers, they face a lot of pressure from legal pressure and competitive and technological challenges from online stores. And what their way out is usually better customer experience and better customer service. And that is only possible when they have motivated and capable employees. And this and better schedules seem to be a good strategy to create that work environment. Thank you.